Okay, so in this video will be a translation and a discussion of the Aeneid, Book 12, lines 791 to 796, lines 803, so you skip just a little bit right there, to 812, and then we skip to 818, all the way to 828. So maybe it's a little bit longer of a bit of a video, but it is all thematically the same, in which Jupiter is stepping in, telling Juno, get out of it, stop inserting yourself into the fight, stop helping turn us on the battlefield, it's going to happen, accept it. And then she admitting that she must accept it, and then obviously trying to negotiate some stuff that we'll see in just a moment. So here it goes. So, meanwhile, the king of omnipotent Olympus, kind of a transferred epithet, because it really should be omnipotens, but it is, like I say, an epithet that is transferred to Olympus. He ad loquitur, he addresses from the deponent verb loquor, loqui, locutus sum, and he addresses Juno, the one to intem, from tuae or tueri, meaning to watch over. So watching over, present active participle, Juno watching over the fights from the tawny cloud. Tawny is a great term in English that means kind of like a brownish blondish or blondish brown. Nevertheless, he asks, what end now will there be? Ero, eris, erit, the future of the verb sumese, O spouse. Finally, what remains? What stands back? What's your purpose? You know that indeed it's over. And that's exactly what he then says. You yourself know that Aeneas, and then we add an essay implied to make our indirect statement with our accusative subject, and then our finite infinitive, that Aeneas is indigenous. In other words, that Aeneas is home. He is the place to where he is going to be, and that is Latium, as it were. And you confess, you admit, fateor, and I'll write out principal parts for you, fateor, fateri, and then of course, fessus sum. That's where we get the word fess up and confess. So you confess that, or you confess to know that, again, take Aeneas as your accusative subject, is owed to heaven. So in other words, that he will be the great character that he is destined to be, and that he is lifted. And so even though these are infinitives, we're translating them as though they are finite verbs with the subject, Aeneas. And a finite verb, remember, is merely a verb that does have a subject, and they do. And that he is lifted to the stars by the fates. Quid struis? What do you construct? What do you build? In other words, your efforts here are pointless. You are wasting your time. Or, qua spe? With what hope do you stick around on those icy clouds, on those cold clouds? And then we skip to 803. It has been come. Latin loves what we indeed don't have a good equivalency for in English, which is the impersonal passive. We would always say the boys came into the room, but Latin would just as easily say it was come into the room by the boys. And so that's what we have here. It has been come to the final step, the final thing. You have been able, which of course is from possum, posse, potui, to agitate those Trojans on the lands and or on the waves. And this harkens all the way back to the very beginning of the Aeneid when we learned about Aeneas. And it said that Aeneas, having been thrown about in the deep, having been thrown about on the earths or on the lands, as it were. And so we are harkening back to that same kind of language. You have been able to inflame an unspeakable war, to deform a house. Think about all that obviously she has left in destruction in her wake, in her meddling. Dido, dead and gone. Amata, dead and gone. And so indeed, it is a trail of destruction that Juno has obviously put forth. And you have been able to mix together weddings, marriages with grief. Veto, I forbid, implied you, to attempt to try any further. In such a way, seek Jupiter, Orsus, having begun. Remember that this comes from the deponent verb, and so Orsus is our perfect passive looking, in which it is ordior, ordiri, or susum, to begin or to undertake. And so in such a way, Jupiter, having begun, having undertaken. Seek in such a way the Saturnian goddess, contra, against or in response, and this is the important part, with her face, with her countenance, with her visage, having been sent down. It's that when you're defeated and you know it, and thus that is Juno. Indeed, that freaking desire, will of yours, and we forgot the sense, and so let's go back. Since indeed, that freaking desire, will of yours, or your freaking desire of will, having been known, or just imply with an ellipsis, the form of the verb est, and thus we made a finite verb, has been known to me, O great Jupiter in the vocative. And I, the unwilling one, we in English want it to have an adverbial force to it, unwillingly, but in Latin it is the adjective, I have left behind both Turnus and the land. She is admitting that now she indeed is going to withdraw from actually helping out on the battlefield. We continue with line 810. And here we have again a series of imperfect subjunctives. And remember, as an independent use without being subordinated by something like an ut for an ut clause or a cum for a cum clause, or all the other ways by which you can subordinate those subjunctive clauses, it's going to be potential subjunctives. And you would potentially not see me alone now on the aerial seat up in the heavens to suffer worthy things and unworthy things. Implied if you weren't stepping in and saying enough is enough. But having been surrounded, having been girded, kingo kingere, like what I do with my belt, by flames, I potentially would stand under the battle line itself, ipsa modifying acie, if you weren't stepping in and telling me enough is enough, and potentially I would be dragging those Teucrians into inimical battles or hostile battles, proilium, proilii. And so all of these potentialities of videres and starem and traherem, these imperfect subjunctives, has to be potential because she's been told no. Remember the words of Jupiter, veto, I forbid. So we skip a few lines and continue in 8:18. And now I yield. Cato, catere, kesi, kesus can mean go, but it can also mean yield, where we get the English word seed. And now indeed I yield. And having been filled with hatred, a perfect passive participle, I leave behind the fights. I request you, I ask for you that one thing. And so obtestor is taking a double accusative, and it really means idiomatically in English, I request from you that one thing. And so this one thing I'm wanting, a thing which is held by no law of fate. And so in other words, she is saying I make one request. And this request is certainly allowable by you because fate has not discounted it. Fate has not made it to where it's an impossible request. So you need to obviously perhaps honor it. And so she again says, obtestor, I ask for, I request, if you would like, as it happens to be, I obtest you that one thing, which is held by no law of fate. On behalf of Latium, I ask this. On behalf of the majesty of yours, as in your peoples. And what is this request that she is going to make? Cum yam. Remember, cum can mean with, if it is going to be a preposition with an ablative object, or its definitions are going to be when, since, although. The first when with an indicative meaning a specific time when, and the other three with subjunctives, including the when, non-specific time, but general circumstances. And here, component, which obviously is indicative, a future indicative from pono, ponere. When now they will compose the piece with happy or lucky marriages, weddings, then the future imperative, let it be, more like of saying, whatever, fine, let it be. When now they will join together, Jungo Jungere, their laws and their treaties, when they get together their civilization and they get together their society and they get together their government, ne eubios. Now, previously we had seen, obviously in the lines above, some imperfect subjunctives for potential, but remember, when it is an independent use of the subjunctive and it is a present subjunctive, it is the jussive subjunctive if it is second and third person as a terminology. And for first person, we call it hortatory, but you translate it, let the subject verb, or may the subject verb. It acts kind of like, really, a command, as it were. That's why it's called jussive, from ubio, ubere, usi, usus. And so hortatory, hortare, to encourage. And so really the jussive subjunctive, or the hortatory subjunctive, is kind of like a command in a way. And so that's exactly what we have here. And here, this of course makes it a negative command. And so, since it's second person, I think it sounds better in English to use the word may. So when this goes on, when they will do this and when they will do that, may you not order the indigenous Latins to change their old name. And so, she is asking that even though the Trojans are the ones that have come in, she doesn't want the Trojans to assimilate the Latins, but have the Latins remain. Now, the analogy that I use here is, of course, the Spanish and Hernán Cortés with the Aztecs. It would be like letting them not be called Mexicans moving forward, but let them remain Aztecs, as it were. Let them not be Spanish moving forward, let them be Aztecs still. And so that's exactly what they want. May you not order the Latins to change their old name, vetus modifying nomen, both in the neuter, nor may you order the Latins to become, from the verb, that is the passive of facio facere, fio fieri, fatasum, to be made, to become Trojans, and to be called Teucrians, i.e. Trojans. Or, again, may you not order the men to change their voice. Again, with my analogy to the Aztecs, let them keep speaking Nahuatl. Don't make Nahuatl die out and have them now speak Spanish. She's saying, don't make Latin die out and now speak the Trojan language. And so, Nahuatl being the language, obviously, of the Aztecs, or to change their clothing. Again, let the Aztecs, in my analogy, keep wearing their native dress moving forward. Don't make them assimilate into the Spanish dress, which is, of course, what almost always happens when a group comes in and colonizes others. Continuing on with present subjunctives, again, let as the jussive subjunctive. Let it be Latium, and let the kings be Albans through the ages. Now, let me briefly explain about this Alban business. Remember that Aeneas comes in, marries Lavinia. Aeneas is going to found a city known as Lavinium, but his son, Ascanius Iulus, is going to found a different city, which is that of Alba Longa, the city of the long white hills. For hundreds of years, Alba Longa will be ruled over by the descendants of Aeneas, because with Lavinia, he also has a son named Aeneas Silvius, until finally you get down to the part of the story in which it is Numitor kicked out by his evil brother. Numitor has that daughter, Rhea Silvia, and the evil brother then forces Rhea Silvia to become a Vestal Virgin. She is obviously raped by the god Mars, gives birth to Romulus and Remus, and they are the ones that are going to eventually abandon Alba Longa, and then, of course, found the new city of Rome. So it goes from Lavinium to Alba Longa, and Alba Longa is the mother city, or the father city of Rome, as it were. And so, let it be Latium. Let the Albans be the kings through the ages, and let, again, with another subjunctive, sim, sis, sit, from sum esse, the Roman offspring. Let that offspring be powerful with Italian virtue, not Trojan virtue. The Aztecs, Aztec virtue, not Spanish virtue. And then Occidit, the indicative perfect, understanding your subject being Troy. Troy has fallen. It has died. It's over with. And may you allow, from sino, scenere, again a present subjunctive, we fear a, third conjugation, which I'd like, and may you allow ut, that Troy has died, a perfect subjunctive, in this ut clause, cum nomine, with the name. So she is wanting, at least if she is going to accept that Aeneas will be successful ultimately, that his previous civilization, his previous culture, be the one that is erased, and not the culture of the Latins that they are coming and moving in to, as it were. And so, all of this is going to be agreed to. And thus we have only one more installment, which is the final meeting between Aeneas and Turnus, which is going to happen because of Juno's withdrawal from the battlefield. Keep studying, and good luck.